I'm halfway there, so
nice.
happy about that. Yeah.
Nice, amazing. Okay, so I think people are starting to join. I'm going to introduce my guests today on the digital media panel in the MENA region. And I'm super excited to have this conversation. I think that it's going to be very interesting for the folks who have joined. And of course, this is recorded, so we will be. I think we will be sharing this conversation with folks. To introduce Kareem, Karim Beidoun. He is a music composer, a sound designer, and audio engineer. He's had over 20 years or more of experience working in professional audio. He's the co-founder of Hakawati, and we'll talk about what Hakawati is if you guys don't already know it, which I'm sure, hopefully, most people in the region already do. And I'm also introducing a fun fact about my guests so that it's something that kind of gives them a human element beyond just their LinkedIn and their professional profile. So Kareem, the fun fact about him is that he has a sixth sense, and he predicted the financial crisis of 2008 and prepared accordingly. So if your premonitions are true, then you guys should probably pay attention to Hakawati then. Okay, next we have Joy, and Joy, you're gonna have to help me pronounce your last name.
It's Khoriaty.
Khoriaty, okay, Khoriaty. Yeah. And he loves the opportunities tech entrepreneurs have and the impact that they deliver. He's built successful businesses across a number of industries like media, marketing, health. He's also been coding since he was 5. So he's built things like basic logo programs, and then he's also worked on the largest supercomputers, modeling subatomic particle physics. And his fun fact, and I actually asked him for proof about this, is that he boxed with Muhammad Ali. So I have actually seen pictures of this. And we have our third and final guest, Ahmed Makari. And let me know again if I mispronounced your last name. Okay, great. And Ahmed Makari is an accomplished creative director and content strategist working primarily in the music industry for the last 8 years in the Middle East. He is also the head of content and creative at Sony Music in the Middle East. And I also forgot to mention that he's focused more on the engineering side. So I'm super excited to welcome you guys. Thanks again for joining us today as people drop in from the last session. So to kick it off, first, can we talk about so Join Kareem, can you tell us why you created a new podcast platform in the Middle East in 2019? What was your kind of reason and inspiration for that?
Do you want me to start, Joy?
Go ahead.
So for me, it started when I was hired by the BBC a few years ago. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, to record a radio drama in Arabic about the war in Syria. We were releasing episodes weekly on the radio, traditional radio, but also as a podcast on streaming applications like Apple Podcasts. So the idea was that a younger audience that's used to consuming video content would also want to consume audio content the same way, on demand, basically. And radio dramas are very old generation. Older people tend to listen to them. So the producers really wanted to find a way to connect with a younger audience. So while doing it, we saw like a huge opportunity in the space, and we went for it. We decided to do something that wasn't just a traditional media company, but also something that is, the media company of the future, that has its own in-house, powered by its own technology. And that's where Joy comes in.
Yeah, so we love the opportunity of, there's content production, and there's marrying content production with tech and backing it up with engineering. So from the start, we've been, heavily involving tech in streamlining the whole process, making it capital efficient, making it making it relevant, emphasizing all things basically being highly competitive by backing the content production with technology. And that, I guess we'll discuss it more as we get into the tech part. So we really saw this gap of creating premium Arabic content that's also modern. That's like the content part, by backing it through a heavily streamlined tech-backed process. And so we have this complementarity. So we set out to do it, and voila.
Wonderful. And you guys have seen massive growth, right, in the last since 2019, and especially in 2020. So, you can mention some of your accolades.
So I think in 2020 we had a 420% increase in downloads during the pandemic, which is huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Massive. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Anghami. And I think maybe for those of you who don't know what Anghami is, we'll ask our guests to define it. And, there's been a recent public listing of Anghami. They just went public. And so that's kind of really a big news for the region. And I'm wondering if you guys can speak to that. What do you think the future of media is, especially when it comes to kind of like the financial repercussions of that? Is this more just signal or noise, or what do you think?
Well, for those of you who don't know Anghami is a music streaming platform that's based out of the Middle East. Well, first I'd like to express how proud I am that a company that started in Lebanon went on to become the first Arab tech company to be listed on the NASDAQ stock market, which is amazing. What I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with all the extra money and firepower that they have. And I believe that they're going to be investing more in content that will be exclusive to their platform, because there's a lot more demand for Arabic content than there is supply currently. So I think they're really going to be focusing on that.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think it's to echo Kareem, overall, as Lebanese, as Arabs, we're super proud of what Anghami has accomplished, and as entrepreneurs worldwide, I think it's a big signal for showing that companies from here can compete globally and take advantage of funding sources that are the top ones worldwide. So I think it's very exciting overall for the scene.
Wonderful. And then for those who don't know what Anghami is, it's kind of like, I describe it as like the Spotify of the Middle East, which I don't know if that's fair. But so Ahmed, is it accurate? Okay, great. So Ahmed, since you focus on music in the MENA region at Sony, I'm really excited to hear your perspective. Can you kind of walk us through your experience in the region, and also walk us through the creative process that you're involved in? And what have you seen as like common trends and themes over the last several years? Has that changed since the pandemic? I could repeat these questions too if there are too many.
No, it's good. It's good. I'll just talk in general. But a big part of what we do in the music industry here, and what I look to do with my artists being a content manager, is there's a huge educational part to it. Now, we need to give artists a fresh perspective to what some people call like the elusive music industry. The label term is frowned upon by a lot of people. Not a lot of people like the term label when it comes to the artists. And I'm assuming people like Kareem and Joy who are also in the podcast system. So for me, it's about education. That's the first thing. The artist market was at a certain point saturated by all the older talents. So something very excited that I have noticed over the last year, last couple of years, when the DSP markets entered the MENA region, is the new pool of fresh talent that has came out of the MENA region. So eventually what's happening is that the business model is changing from the physical to the digital, allowing all these artists to publish their own music and get more streams and be listened on a global stage. So I think that's pretty important for the music. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to, I wouldn't say keep up with it, but we're trying to kind of lead on that front.
Wonderful. And has anything shifted even more so in the last year since the pandemic? How has that process changed? Because I imagine maybe not so much in Dubai anymore, but maybe early on in the pandemic last year, there probably was a shift in being able to work in parts of the creative process. So like, how did you guys kind of work around that?
So yeah, when COVID first hit, it was pretty difficult to generate any content. Now, us, for example, Sony Music Middle East, we're headquartered in Dubai, but we tailor to the whole MENA region, and most of our artists are in Morocco or in Egypt, for example. And there was a big gap there, trying to reach out to these artists and try to generate content, especially video content, film content. So, I mean, we ended up trying to find many different solutions. You know, like the most notable that you would use are like the animation style instead of a pure video clip, going into the VR stuff, VR side of things, going into like augmented realities and ER kind of experiences. So I think that was pretty interesting. But on the other side, I think there was a great upside for the pandemic in the music industry. A lot of artists, a lot of labels are right now hustling to innovate, which is good for us always because that pushes us to innovate. And on the other side, a lot of artists have a renewed passion to music. And you see them generating a lot of musical content and recording live and engaging with their fans, for example, like through all the social media platforms. So that's been a plus for the labels, for the music business.
Wow. Yeah, I think I mean my philosophy too is like the art world has really kind of been a healing part of the pandemic for I think a lot of people, like the creative process in general. So it's really cool to hear that there's been more music and more inspiration coming out of that. That's wonderful. So Joy and Kareem, can you walk us through some of your top shows, and can you also tell us why you wanted to bring up some controversial topics? I know that some of your shows are, you know, kind of a little bit, I would say, risque in the Middle East region, but I'm also really curious, you know, why you decided to focus on some of these issues, and then what the region's reaction has been to some of the shows.
Let me answer the second part of the question first. We never purposely or consciously set out to cover controversial topics. It wasn't something that we did on purpose. We just felt that there was a lack of information about a lot of subjects, including, for example, sexual education in Arabic in the Arab world. So we wanted to provide a platform for Arabic speakers to access that kind of information in Arabic from Arab experts. So it just kind of happened that way. And the response has been amazing. We get a lot of messages and emails, even from conservative countries, you know, all over the region, that fully support what we do. And, you know, they thank us and they love us for it.
Yeah, I would add that they're not controversial per se. Maybe they're provocative. But at the end of the day, they're key topics that aren't being discussed, and people want to hear about it, want to discuss it. So that's why it's echoing really well, and having a premium channel through which to engage in having a high quality recording and a very engaging listening experience for the consumer.
Wonderful. Yeah, great to hear. And Ahmed, what about you? What are some creative themes that have surprised you the most, in the region?
All right. Well, to keep it in like the controversial theme, a couple of years. Provocative. Yeah, provocative.
I'm use the word controversial.
A couple of years back, just before the pandemic, we had signed a huge back catalog of Egyptian Mahraganat music. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what Mahraganat music is, but it's the street music of Egypt, and I'm talking like deep street of Egypt. So it's very, by default, it's not the best representation on an image scale. So the unions at the time and the governments clapped back on them because some of the people were mentioning, for example, the use of, like sensitive topics. So they were using that. So they ended up clapping back and they ended up stopping the music. Well, what's interesting about that is two things happened. Mahraganat became one of the biggest genres in Egypt. Everybody's listening to it. Everybody's releasing music. The second part of it is that also allowed space for a new genre to emerge, which is Egyptian rap and Egyptian trap. So, like arguably right now, I think the most streamed artist on Spotify, for example, is this Egyptian artist that sings half Maharaganat, half rap, which is a new thing for Egypt to hear, considering like all the big artists you have coming out of there, like the Amr Diabs and so on and so on and so on. So I think that was very special to hear.
Wow. Fascinating. And you guys spoke a little bit about, or at least Ahmed, you spoke a little bit about VR and other technologies. And I'm wondering, what do you think the future holds when it comes to new technologies or channels that you guys are thinking about or working with, kind of as like the way forward in the digital media landscape?
Well, I think the future of music streaming especially is in data and tech. So acquiring the data and being able to get straight into your pocket, into your phone, that is the future. Now, this has been pushed a lot faster because of the pandemic. A lot of the artists lost their major revenue stream, which is their live performances. So they couldn't do any live performances. They lost a lot of money on that. I mean, they're starving. The word starving artist is now like a reality. So a lot of we are going into the VR world for live events specifically. And because of the whole collaboration, because of also the whole rise of video streaming, like platforms like Twitch and so on, you have these platforms that allow you right now to live stream any video you want and be accessible to your artists. Just like a rough example, any kind of big festival, the maximum capacity you're going to be able to fit in like 300,000. Right now, because it's a digital world and the live world, you have like 33 million attendees to one show, which is first a great monetization tool for the people who are organizing these events and the labels, and secondly for the artists to sell their merch, to sell their virtual skins, and so on and so on. So definitely technology is the way forward, and all of us have to keep our eyes open to it.
Yeah, and I think and Joy and Kareem speak to that too, but I have a follow-up question, Joy, for you on some of the innovative technologies that you're using.
Cool.
Some of the innovative technologies that you're building on
some of the what?
And also your perspective. Like you obviously are like a very well-known tech guy. You've built supercomputers. I think you're very plugged into the tech space. So I'm just curious if you also have anything to share on that end and how you're also incorporating some of the innovation that you spoke about earlier on the Hakawati platform when it comes to podcasting.
Sure. Following up on, Ahmed touched on VR, and I wanted to, also confirm there's also so much, excitement in VR for in the audio space for VR. So there's a lot of promising things, whether it's music or, podcasts in VR. So this is, something we're obviously, we're keeping our hands dirty with the VR headsets and the different environments, that are being created. I'm hoping Hopin is also doing the same thing. It could be in a year or so, we'll be in these, more VR-like environments having these conversations. But hopefully, we'll also be able to move around freely with all this pandemic stuff behind us. So having said that, yeah, the different type of tech. So as I was, mentioning earlier, on one side, we heavily work on streamlining the process of content creation. So all things in terms of automating the different manual steps and the distribution steps on the different across the major networks we work with. But additionally, we've released our ad tech that we've been developing and we're really proud of. So this has to do with being able to dynamically inject ads across our catalog and so on. So that's very exciting. We've been staying busy also with the machine learning stuff. So we've, I think, recorded so far over 10,000 hours of training of our Arabic narrator type of system. So this is a deep learning, deep neural net type of system that's being trained and so on, that will, the idea is, we want to be we're creating premium Arabic content, and we want to be at the forefront of all things related to Arabic audio. So at the tech stack, this covers a lot of stuff, and it's awesome because we get to play with a lot of technology. Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of a snippet of the things we're doing. One tech we developed that paid off big time was our remote recording tech. So we wanted to extend the reach of our hosts globally. So pre-COVID we had built up, and we have to pre-COVID, I wanted to say we have to thank Lebanon's circumstances, but we realized that it was practical to have a good remote recording tech, not just to extend the reach of our hosts, but also to deal with all the uncertainties on the road. And it turns out, that reality is still hitting us globally with a lot of constraints that I think can lead to innovation. So,
Ahmed, did you want to say something? Sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Joy. Super fascinating. And I think there's like a lot to learn from the pandemic too, and how that's kind of shifted perceptions. And it's also nice to know about the remote work situation. We can talk more about that later. So I wanted to also talk to you about how the audience has perceived the shift since the pandemic. And because we talked largely about content creators, right? Like the artists and the hosting, the content creation side, but like, what about the audience? Like, how are they interacting with these new innovations? Or has it kind of been seamless? Have you noticed any difference, or have you noticed kind of a shift in the way people want to consume and interact with new content? How has that shifted? And also, I know that we spoke about VR. How does people owning the technology for VR influence their adoption? Because I know that's been an issue in the West. So.
Who wants to start? Okay, so
please go ahead.
So in the podcast,
I don't want to hijack the microphone
during the pandemic, as I said before, listenership went up. When during the first lockdown, which was I think March of last year, there was in listenership, and we were like, oh my God, is this industry going to die now because people aren't commuting anymore? And it lasted for about 2 weeks, and then it shot up like crazy. So people started consuming later in the day. They started consuming more audio content because it freed them to do other things around the house, and also because there's a lot of with everything that was happening and all the stress, a friendly voice in your ear was something that I think appealed to a lot of people. So and one of our shows, Ta'at Hub, which is exactly that, grew a lot during the pandemic, especially during the first lockdown. So just the way and timing of people consuming audio changed. People were also using widgets more instead of listening through, their mobile devices while working. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'll go just to give like the music business perspective of it. I think it's music was always a passive kind of commodity, right? You just release your music, people go buy it and take it home and just listen to it. So it's interesting to watch how artists are now much more interactive, and fans have now accessibility and direct interaction with their artists, and artists are taking advantage of that, and they're creating that kind of ecosystem between the fan base and the artists. So that's always a plus.
Wonderful.
I would add that an interesting thing was with all the events taking place, this showed a kind of a resilience to the audio industry and the consumption, right? And that's because of its portability, its use, privacy aspect, and so on. So, I mean, I think we all felt, a bit of a dip when things happen, but things picked up really nicely. So I think that's very exciting. And you did mention I don't know if you want us to dive into that, but the aspect of owning tech, VR, hardware and so on, if these are going to be barriers to entry and so on. All this is in its super early stages, right? I think the same way NFTs and crypto in general, I think if we zoom out, a lot of the worldwide events that are taking place, are accelerating innovations, but they also need to settle at some point. So all this is still, being figured out. So
I was very curious about the VR space. I think that we've seen kind of a uptick in that in Silicon Valley, because years ago it just didn't really pan out well, but there's been more of a popular demand, and in particular in the industry of mental health. So just curious how that has impacted media. So what do you guys think is like the most important piece that we should be thinking about as content creators or artists when it comes to the future of media in the Middle East and also globally? What do you think, founders or folks on that side of the publishing world should be thinking about?
In our space, in the podcasting space, it might be a bit different than in the music industry, but I think that founders should have the mindset that we're all building an industry together, and the market is huge and it's mostly untapped. So better content, better technology that supports the content can create more awareness and bring a bigger audience that will benefit everyone in the industry.
I think from a music perspective, sorry, you want to go with Joy? I just want to say it's a...
No, please. we'll run some music in the podcast.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that from a personal standpoint, I'm interested in seeing how the music value is changing and how businesses are taking music value and kind of monetizing ads and pushing it ahead. I don't know, I think, Joy, you mentioned something about NFTs, but this concept of NFTs is a brand new look in the music industry. And right now, everyone is scrambling to figure out how to deal with it and how to release a track using NFTs and still have the original label value or music distributor value or platform value. Right now, artists are just doing it on themselves. And while some people are getting massive outcome out of it, some other people are just not even appearing on the radar. So I think that's the future is in cryptocurrency and NFTs and VRs and stuff like that. So everyone needs to be on board with that.
Cool.
From a geek's perspective, I would add that all the stuff that's been taking place has accelerated the social embracing of tech, right? Because guess what? Otherwise we'd all be stuck in our houses, not able to communicate, right? So now my the grandparents, the parents, everyone has embraced this, and it's awesome because it's paying off and it's showing how it can contribute socially to connecting us. The thing is that there's a lot of crap out there that we're generating too, right? Because we are in the age of communication, but we need to be in an age. We need to kind of keep evolving into a better form and truer and genuine communication. So I would say that's one critical thing that I would like to see in our future. Is it only about optimizing something in particular, or is it about creating better societies, improving our quality of life, and so on? And this is where I would tie, social impact. A lot of our shows are super famous and popular because of the social impact, and we take that, very dearly to our hearts. So it should be about true, genuine communication with all these high-speed interconnected layers, whether they're VR or not. And it should be a responsible future that we build. So better understanding of the technology, just because someone coughed up something called a non-fungible token or crypto or whatever, because, does it mean we should all run to it? Are we properly understanding it? Does it make sense? So I think the interesting thing would be to make sure that it's not technology that's running us forward, but we're, deciding why to adopt it into the future we want to build. And that means really better understanding it.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful and very
there.
true. I think being conscious creators and having like intention behind what we create, because there is, and I think also people are creating content that could actually, make society more fearful, right? Rather than lifting them up. So I think that's very important. I wanted to quickly ask about a little bit of a different topic. And I know we have only a couple minutes left, but I think that this is actually a very important point. And something that I think a lot of people have been asking me about. So I wanted to ask you guys. So Clubhouse obviously emerged last year, and I'm wondering how that has changed the landscape of podcasting and maybe even, your work, Ahmed, at Sony. What's been kind of the perspective of the MENA region when it comes to Clubhouse? And I think I recently read that one of the countries banned Clubhouse. I think it was the Emirates.
Yep.
Yeah. So can you speak to that real quick?
Real quick, because they just blocked Clubhouse, so I only been there for like 2 weeks. So it was good while we were there. We learned a lot. We shared a lot. We met a lot of people from the industry, and then I was gone. But yeah, I'll leave it to the guys who are still using it.
So for me, it doesn't affect podcasting. It's in the same space. It's audio, but it's two very different things. I mean, a podcast is something that's pre-recorded that can be consumed anytime, anywhere you want. Whereas a Clubhouse thing it's more of a networking and marketing tool that you can use. And I think you need to get permission from everyone in the thing before, I think written permission or something, before you can actually record it and release it. So it's two separate things. I think it's a great marketing tool. It's an excellent networking tool. And it's a testament to the power of audio, that this is an industry that is moving forward and, gaining traction. But I don't think it affects podcasting in any way.
Cool. You guys aren't creating anything similar to Clubhouse on Hakawati.
We've experimented with things under the kind of this umbrella of social audio, and we think its time will come. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. I mean, sadly, it's you still also have to wonder of how sticky it will be in the longer term, and how much it makes sense overall. But there's definitely
Wonderful.
a market.
So we are going to wrap up.
In
Thank you so much for your time. We maybe just leave the audience with one last kind of main takeaway on what they should be thinking about when it comes to, media in the Middle East.
I would say it's blooming / booming. I would say it's kind of in its infancy, and it's packed with potential. So very interesting, things to come.
Societies are opening up. They're hungry for Arabic content that is relevant, that is culturally sensitive, but also forward-thinking and progressive. And as Joy said, it's still in its infancy. It's a huge market. That we'll see a lot of growth in the coming years.
Yeah, music-wise, I think the same as everyone said. The tech is still new globally, and the digital platforms and all of that, you can kind of call it new globally, and infancy here in the region. And it's just a matter of how we use it and how we consciously and be able to use it turn it into power. So yeah, it's a very exciting time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joy, Kareem, Ahmed, for your time. This was so enlightening. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience did as well. And we're so grateful to you for your time. I know it's late in the Middle East. And for folks who've been tuning in, feel free to send us a comment, tell us what you learned. Follow these guys, check out Hakawati, follow Sony Music and MENA, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Yasmeen.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Yasmeen.
Ahmed.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, off to bed. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.